two or 3 weeks ago, I was talking to Ellen on the phone, and I asked her if she had a copy of Love Daddy, and she said, no, send me one. So I called University Press and sent her a copy. And today, in her talk this morning in this room, she said, now I want to recommend to you, everybody, Love Daddy by David Morris. She said, I couldn't put it down, and I was sad when it ended. And I have an idea for a sequel for him. Quote, collect everything Willie wrote. All the letters Willie wrote, unquote.
I'll defer to Jack on that.
Now, the gist of my talk today is Willie was a force for change in Oxford. I want to tell how that happened. And it was a positive change because it gave Oxford life after Faulkner. I've lived in Oxford since 1970, and I went to graduate school there and met my future wife in Chaucer class, Louis Dollarhide's Chaucer class. And Willie came in 1980, and I'd been there for 10 years, so I could see the changes that he wrought in Oxford. It was obvious. Now, I met Willie in 1978 at the Greenwood Arts Festival at a lawn party at Bill and Mary Jane Whittington's house. And in the course of the evening, he asked Dean and me if we would approach Ole Miss to see if we would be interested in hiring him as writer-in-residence. And we were happy to do that. We were honored to do that. And Porter Fortune was the chancellor then, and he was delighted. He couldn't believe it. Manna from heaven. And 2 years later, David and Willie appeared in Oxford at our front door, having driven all the way in 2 cars from Bridgehampton. And Willie had an immediate impact on the town. Now, what I didn't realize, and it took me a while to figure this out, was that what Willie offered Oxford was a real celebrity, a writer who was totally gifted, a genius, and he was a golden boy from Mississippi, his native son, who had made it in New York. Okay, so when Willie came, Oxford lavished the affection on him that William wouldn't allow. And it took me a while to figure this out because I knew that Willie had this tremendous impact on Oxford. I didn't expect it. And you must have been surprised too how Oxford just lavished love on Willie. He was encouraging to students. He was encouraging to all the writers in Oxford, including myself. And I didn't know I would publish him until he came to me and said, Harriet DeSalle of Yazoo wants to do a reprint of my children's book, Good Old Boy, to teach at the Yazoo school. Harriet DeSalle was Willie's high school English teacher. And she also taught math. Math teacher. Oh, okay. And so anyway, Good Old Boy was the first book we published by Willie at Yoknapatawpha Press. And I had backed into the publishing business in 1976 when Howard Duvall, who started Yoknapatawpha Press, asked me to edit the Cofield collection, William Faulkner's Cofield collection. And it's still the best photobiography, I must say, of Faulkner. It's 300 pictures of Faulkner. But Willie said, would you like to publish it with Harriet? And I said, you've already given it to Harriet. What does she think about this? And he said, it's okay. So we joined together in the printing. I did 5,000 hardcover and she did 5,000 paperback. So Willie, his autograph parties were a sensation. I took him and Dean and I took him to the Mississippi Library Association at Gulfport in 1980. And that was the first. Willie was getting ready to initiate me as a publisher with him on the road. I set them up for an interview at WLOX, the morning show of Biloxi TV. And they said, be here at 7. And my heart sank. I knew that was going to be a problem. And so I knocked on Willie's door at 6:30 to give him a little bit of a heads up. And I didn't hear anything for about 2 minutes. And then a ghostly voice said, "Get me a Bloody Mary, boss." At 6:30. So I did, the first thing that came into my mind was find a taxi driver and see if he knows we're, I don't know, all night bar. Well, miraculously, there was a 24-hour bar in Biloxi. In Gulfport. And I was able to get Willie to get him a Bloody Mary. And I got him into the studio at WLOX. And he was not looking well. He was looking, in fact, wretched from the partying the night before. You know how that goes. And then I saw him he'd been on the Today Show 8 times. And he was just an old pro. He liked TV. He liked being on TV. He muscled down like this, and he forced blood up into his face. His face was dry. It was ashen. Are any of you here old enough to have seen the Secret Garden starring Margaret O'Brien? You might have seen it on the TCM or something. It came out in 1949. It's a black and white movie until the very end, and Margaret O'Brien, the little girl, is in the secret garden, and she's meeting her daddy, and he's going to love her for the first time. And suddenly, it becomes Technicolor, the movie, and that's what happened to Willie. There in WLOX, he became Technicolor. I could not believe my eyes. And then he immediately started talking about Good Old Boy and how he wanted to show David what it was like to grow up in Yazoo City. David, who had grown up only in New York at that point, you were 9 or 10 years old. Okay, so Willie in Oxford was encouraging the writers, and one of the first that he encouraged was Donna Tartt, and the second that he encouraged was Sid Salter. And I was at Willie's house on Faculty Road the night Sid came in. What time was it? It was about 10 o'clock at night. And he showed up. Willie wasn't expecting you, right? He didn't know you were coming. And Sid had written an article, was it for the Scott County Times? And wanted Willie to read it. Just on impulse, he wrote up there to show Willie his article. Now, was that the first time you met Willie? No, that wasn't the first time.
No, the first time I met it was in the Holiday Inn bar.
That's everybody met it. So Sid read his editorial out loud to Willie and me. I don't know why I was there, but I was there. And Willie immediately brightened, praised Sid, told him, this is it, you got it, run with it. And that kind of encouragement, Sid mentioned it earlier, but Willie was encouraging all the writers or would-be writers in Oxford, starting with his students. One night I was at his house, and he was editing what Willie would do at night, at midnight or 1 o'clock. He would work. He stayed up all night anyway. I think that started the Daily Texan. He became an insomniac. So he is editing his student papers. I guess maybe we ran out of conversation at 1 o'clock. So he started editing his students' papers, okay? So I'm looking over his shoulder. I'm 42 years old, and I haven't published a novel yet. But that night, I was ready to learn the higher editing skills of editing a manuscript. And he worked for about an hour on them while I watched. I was just frozen right there, like part of another appendage. And I learned enough about the editing skills. Willie had a felt tip pen. He would flip away an adjective, or he would crush a digression. He would black it out, and he would then maybe move a sentence up here or a paragraph up here with arrows. And I saw that he was like a chess master. He could play 5 moves ahead. He knew the whole of the essay and how it all fit together just at a glance. It was stunning. And about 2 years later, I was able to write Roland the Rebel, my first novel. And Willie was writing the Courting of Marcus Dupree, and he would come over to the house. And I'm telling this story as an example of how he encouraged writers. Willie is building a literary community around him, literally building it. And he would read a little bit, and I would read a little bit. And Dean was our only audience. We were at the kitchen table, which we called a kitchen cabinet. And the next morning, I went out to get my paper at 7 a.m. or something. There in the mailbox is a note, and it's Willie's handwriting. It says, "You're onto something, boss." I had read him the chapter about Bryce's Crossroads, where Rommel, the German general, goes to Bryce's Crossroads, right? So, Willie, I published 5 books by Willie, but Willie's real contribution in Oxford was to build the writing community around him. We had Richard Ford lived there, John Grisham. He helped run John Grisham. Do you know that story? John Grisham came to him and said, "I need an agent for the firm." And Willie got him an agent, and the agent found out that Tom Cruise was looking to play a lawyer. He wanted to play a lawyer. He did, and he needed a vehicle. And they sold that to Tom Cruise for $600,000, and then he auctioned it, but he didn't really auction it. He came to Doubleday and he said, "I'm not going to auction this if you'll give him $1 million." And that's the way I heard it, and Willie told it to me. So I don't know if Willie was lying or not, but I know that he helped John a lot, and John came to him, and that is a prime example of his leadership in the Oxford community. Of course, I published Terrains of the Heart. He mentioned Terrains of the Heart. And that was 1981, and then we reprinted North Door Home in 1982. Always Standing Against the Curve was 1983. I needed pictures for it. Willie sent me to Stanley Beers. He was the retired school photographer in Yazoo for many generations. He had a whole file on Willie that he had kept, and he just handed it to me, let me take it back to Oxford. I'm really proud of the pictures in that book. It has a beautiful photo section. Willie growing up, it's unbelievable. He was writing a column for the Yazoo Herald when he was 13. He was reporting on Yazoo High, but he was just in the 8th grade. Powerhouse. So Oxford was looking for an identity in the 1970s, and really blows in 1980. And there was life after Faulkner. He created a literary community that literally grew up around him. He created many careers, and the 2 things I would like to give you, 2 quick events. I'm taking up David's time, I'm sorry. One was when we brought out Good Old Boy and the Wizard of Yazoo, which is a sequel to Good Old Boy. We had an autograph party at Square Books, which they had on their balcony, and Richard Howarth later told me that he really worried him that it would collapse under the weight of the people. We sold 289 books in about an hour and a half, and people were really wild over Willie and his books. And they hired Fish Mickey and Charlie Jacobs of the Tangents to play on the balcony. It was the first time music wafted out over the square. Those boys brought the Delta to Oxford. And it was really beautiful. It was really just gorgeous. And cars were stopping in the street. People were looking up at the balcony. What's going on up there? It's just Hollywood. And so that was, I remember thinking at the time, this is the greatest autograph party I will ever go to. And there will never be one better than this. It was just stunning. And then Willie's crowning achievement in Oxford, I think, was the movie premiere of Good Old Boy. Now, this is not My Dog's Gift. This is Good Old Boy, filmed in Natchez. And it was a Disney Channel movie. And they now call it The River Pirates. It's on YouTube. You can just Google on YouTube, The River Pirates. And it's a beautiful film. It really is. And took Willie to the rap party in Natchez. He loved that. But we had the world premiere. We had Willie arrive in a car driven by my stepson, John Mallard, with a dog in his front lap with his paws on the steering wheel in a convertible. Willie sitting in the back in a tuxedo, smoking a cigarette, flower on his lapel. And here comes the car driven by a dog. The crowd went wild. We had everybody was in tuxedos and evening gowns, and it was champagne. Toasting with you. We had one Klieg light was all we could find, and it was on the Hoka Theater, which was Ron Shapiro's Hoka Theater, which was an institution on its own right. Well, the week before, Dean and I and Billy Chadwick and his wife Julie, Billy the tennis coach, has a brother named Barney Chadwick, twin brother, sang a song that we wrote for Willie. It was called "The Joker at the Hoka." And it ended like this. All 200 people are sitting there waiting for the movie to start. We're going to show the premiere of Good Old Boy, the world premiere. Willie is sitting on the front row with two little girls on either side of him. And he's in a tuxedo. And they get up on the stage. Billy and his brother Barney and Julie sang. The song ended, "We love you, Willie. You're a bundle of joy. You're the joker at the Hoka, the last of the good old boys." And then Willie got up to make his remarks, and he said, "I've been called a lot of things in my life, but never the joker at the Hoka." And then he added, "But I'm rather honored by it."